Hello everyone. Thank you so much for viewing this video. Before we get started with discussing the contents of the video, I wanted to introduce my nonprofit, the Accelerated Training Program. Our vision is twofold. First, we want to expose all marginalized groups to cybersecurity education, as well as removing the systemic exclusion of cybersecurity education to marginalized groups. Our website is www.t-atp.org. And if you would like to partner or want to learn more, please visit our contact page where you can fill out your name, your email, and a message, and we will get back to you. And again, thank you so much for viewing the contents of this video. Please check out the nonprofit when you have a moment, and let's get to the video. Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 19 Hardware Hacking. Wiggles Go Brr. Okay, I'm gonna start the machine, and I could be reading while the machine starts. So, okay, let's go. Let's get to it. Okay, the story. Spying on Santa. Elf McSkitty was doing a regular sweep of Santa's workshop when he discovered a hardware implant. The implant has a web camera attached to a microprocessor and another chip, because web is life. It seems like someone was planning something malicious. We must try to understand what this implant was trying to do. We will deal with the microprocessor and the web camera in future tasks. For now, let's try to uncover what the other chip is being used for. Okay, so the VM will take approximately 8 minutes. Okay, so they suggest we start the machine now. Okay, great. Okay, so learning objectives. How data is sent via electrical wires and low-level hardware. Excuse me. Hardware communication protocols. How to analyze hardware communication protocols. Reading USART data from a logical capture. Okay, so welcome to the Matrix. Shout out to Neo. Hardware hacking is often shrouded in mystery and seen as a super complex topic. While there are a lot of in depth, complex hardware hacking components, getting our feet wet is actually pretty simple. Computers today are incredibly powerful. This allows them to build additional features and safety measures into their communication protocols to ensure that messages are transmitted reliably. Think about the Transmission Control Protocol, or TCP, which has multiple redundancies in place. It even sends three full packets just to start its communication. That's the three-way handshake. In the world of microchips, we often don't have this luxury. To make sure our communication protocols are efficient as possible, we need to keep them as simple as possible. To do that, we need to enter the world of zeros and ones. This then begs the question, how does hardware take electricity and generate signals? In this task, we will focus on digital communication. For hardware communication, we use a device called a logic analyzer to analyze the signals. This device can be connected to the actual electrical wires that are used for communication between two devices that will capture and interpret the signals being sent. In this task, we will use a logical analyzer to determine the communication between two devices in the rogue implant. Okay, the electrical heartbeat. Back to our question. If we have electricity, how can we generate a digital signal? The approach most hardware components take is to simply turn the power on and off. If the power is on, we are transmitting a digital 1. If the power is off, we are transmitting a digital 0. We call these ones and 0 bits. To perform communication, we simply turn the power on and off in a specific sequence to transmit a bunch of zeros and ones. If we send 8 bits, we are sending a single byte. Voila! We have just performed digital hardware communication. These are the wonderful squiggly lines you would see on a logical analyzer. Okay. So here we have channel 0, channel 1, 2, 3, 4. And it looks like these are on, and the rest are off. Okay. We can transmit text data by using the ASCII table. Let's open this because we might need it. Sending the binary representation of each character, we can transmit data. However, it isn't actually just that simple. If we want zero effort in our communication, we would need an electrical wire for each zero or one that we want to transmit. Considering that a single character is 1 byte of data, thus 8 electrical wires, this can become a mess of wires really fast. To make this more efficient, we need to use fewer wires and then have both hardware chips agree to a specific digital protocol and configuration that will be used to transmit data. Let's look at some of the most common protocols and how they work to send data, still while reducing the number of wires we need. Okay, so USART. Universal synchronous asynchronous receiver transmitter. Say that 3 times fast. Communication, or as it is better known, serial communication, is a protocol that uses 2 wires. One wire is used to transmit data from device A to B, and the other wire is used to receive data on device A from device B. In essence, we connect the transmit port from one device to the receive port from the other device and vice versa. What is interesting about this protocol is that there is no clock line that synchronizes the communication of the devices. Without a clock, the devices have to agree to the configuration of communication, such as the following: communication speed. This also called the baud rate or a bit rate and dictates how fast bytes of data can be sent. Agreeing to a specific rate tells each device how fast it should sample the data to get accurate communication. While there are fixed standards for baud rates, devices can choose to use any other rate as long as both devices support it. Bytes per transmission. This is normally set to 8 bits, which makes a byte, but it can be configured to something else, such as 16 bits. Stop and start bits. Since there is no clock, one device has to send a signal to the other device before it can send or end a data transmission. Excuse me. The configuration of the start and stop bits dictate how this is done. Parity bits. Since there could be errors in the communication, parity bits can be used to detect and correct such errors in the transmission. Once the two devices agree on the configuration of the serial lines, they can now communicate with each other. A single transmission is shown in the diagram below on how the ASCII character of S will be transmitted. So again, we take one transaction and we connect it to a receive. This is transmit, excuse me, one transmit to a receive on the other device. So we see here, this is the start bit, this is the end bit, and to send ASCII S, it is 53. Okay, there are a couple of caveats, however. The devices don't really have a way to determine if the other device is ready for communication. To solve this, some USART connections will use 2 additional lines called clear to send and request to send to communicate to the other device whether it is ready to receive or ready to transmit. Furthermore, to agree upon what voltage level is a binary 1 or 0, a third wire called the ground wire is required to allow the devices to have the same voltage reference. However, despite all of this, USART is an incredibly popular protocol in microprocessors due to its simplicity. Can we answer some of these questions? Let's see. Okay. We need to look at SPI. Okay. SPI, or the Serial Peripheral Interface Communication Protocol, is mainly used for communication between microprocessors and small peripherals such as a sensor or an SD card. While USART communication has the clock built into the transmit and receive lines, SPI uses a separate clock wire. Separating the clock from the data line allows for synchronous communication, which is faster and more reliable. So the trade-off is adding an additional wire, but we gain a speed and reliability boost. An example of the same S being transmitted using SPI is below. Okay, so we can answer USART is not faster than SPI. Okay. USART does not, yes. because with SPI you have an extra wire. Okay. Okay. Did I skip that? Okay, what device? I think they described it. Logic analyzer. Okay, yeah. Okay. So let's keep reading. Okay. So we are here because, again, with SPI, we're including an extra wire, but that is because it is faster in reliability. Okay. The clock line tells the receiving device exactly when it needs to read the data line. Two-way communication is also possible, but quite a bit more complex than serial communication. Essentially, when one of the devices is labeled the controller, this is the only device that is allowed to send clock signals. All other devices become secondary devices that must follow the controller's clock signal to transmit data back. If two-way communication is used, instead of having a single data line, two lines are used. Excuse me. Namely, peripheral in, controller out, or PICO, which means communication is sent from the controller, and peripheral out, controller in, which means communication is sent from the secondary device back to the controller. Okay, hold on. I'm going to get a sip really quick. Okay. Using this, the controller sends a clock signal and a command out to the device using the Pico line and then keeping the clock signal. The controller receives data back on the Pico line as shown in the diagram below. Okay, so we see this is peripheral in, controller out, and then this is peripheral out, controller in. Okay. There is one additional change that can be made. While there can only be one controller, there can be multiple secondary devices. To save wires and ports, all devices can use the same SIC, Pico, and POSI lines. I'm just made that up. POCI lines. A fourth wire called the chip select wire is used to distinguish the device that the communication is meant for. The controller can use this line to indicate to the specific device that it wants to communicate to it, as shown in the diagram below. SPI communication is a fair bit more complex than USART, but having a dedicated clock line increases the speed at which we can communicate and improves reliability. So I2C, the Inter-Integrated Circuit Communication Protocol, was created to deal with the drawbacks of both the USART and SPI communication protocols. Because USART is asynchronous and has the clock built into the transmit and receive lines, devices have to agree ahead of time on the configuration of communication. Furthermore, speeds are reduced to ensure communication remains reliable. On the other hand, while SPI is faster and more reliable, it requires many more wires for communication, and every single additional peripheral requires one more chip select wire. I2C attempts to solve these problems. Similar to USART, I2C only makes use of two lines for communication. I2C uses a serial data line and serial clock line for communication. However, instead of using a chip select wire to determine which peripheral is being communicated to, I2C uses an address signal that is sent to the SDA wire. This address tells all controllers and peripherals which device is trying to communicate and to which device it is trying to communicate to. Once the signal is sent, a data signal can be used to send the actual communication to notify other controllers and peripherals that communication is taking place and prevent these devices from talking over each other. A start and stop signal is used. Each device can monitor these start and stop signals to determine if the lines are busy with communication. An example of such a data transmission is shown below. Okay, so this is the start. Okay, and this is the stop. Since an eternal clock line is used, communication is still faster and more reliable than USART. And while it is slightly slower than SPI, the use of the address signal means up to 1008 devices can be connected to the same two lines and will be able to communicate. Now that we understand the basics of hardware communication protocols, we can look to analyze the logic of that rogue implant. Okay, so this is, I want to say nay. I want to say nay. Okay, so 1008. I'm going to say yay. I think that might not. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we're almost done. Okay, so let's keep going. Probing the logic. After sending this rogue implant to the forensics lab for analysis, the following circuit diagram is uncovered. Based on the diagram, it seems like there is a microprocessor that is connected to an ESP32 chip. Doing some research, we can see that the ESP32 chips allow microprocessors to communicate over Wi Fi and mobile networks. So, whatever this implant was doing, it was definitely communicating with someone else. If we can intercept the communication between the microprocessor and the ESP32 chip, we will be able to see what commands and information are being sent. It seems like the perfect opportunity for our red and blue team to team up. Elf Forensic and Elf Recon are on the job. Okay. The elves realize that these chips probably use digital communication that can be intercepted with the logic analyzer. Looking at the wires between the chips, we see a black wire connected to a pin called GND. Okay, so that is here. GND. Okay. And a red wire connected to a pin called VIN. So that is here. VIN. Okay. Elf Forensics knows from experience that this could be the ground and voltage N wires, respectively, meaning these wires are used to provide power to the chip. That then leaves the green and purple wires that will be used for data transmission. So that are green and purple. So these lines, these two lines here. Okay. Seeing that they are connected to the RX0 and TX0 pins, so remember that's the receive and transmit. Elf Recon can deduce that this refers to the transmit and receive lines of USART communication. Yes, hence we are pretty sure that the protocol used for communication is USART. Armed with this information, the elves connect the probes of the logic analyzer to the green and purple wires before powering on the implant. Immediately, super fast signals are seen on the analyzer. The elves create a logic data dump from the signals, and McSkitty is asking you to investigate what is actually being transmitted. Ooh, okay. In order to analyze the logic data dump, we will need to use a logic analyzer tool called Saley. Start the machine attached to this task, which we've done, which will open an in-browser Windows machine where all the required tools have already been installed for us. Once the machine is loaded on the desktop, double-click on the Logic 2, so that's this here. And once it's loaded, we should see this screen. Okay, so we'll wait till it loads. Okay. So we're going to open the capture. And we're going to go to desktop. And we're going to open Santa. Okay, so we can ignore the calibration error pop up. Once loaded, you should be able to see the captures. If you hold left control and use the mouse wheel to zoom out a bit, you should be able to see the digital signals. Okay, so we're still waiting for it to prepare. Okay. 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 I'm gonna zoom out. Okay. Uh-oh. Let me zoom out. Let me make this bigger. Zoom out. Okay. Okay, so we see it here. Okay. Maybe let me zoom in. Okay. D0 and D1 refer to the digital channels of the two lines that were probed. A0 and A1 refer to the analog data from the probers. Hover your mouse over the first thick line in D1 on channel 1 and use left control and the mouse wheel to zoom in again. Uh-oh. Did I mess up? Okay, zoom out. Zoom out. Okay. Okay. Uh, zoom out. Oh, I want to. Okay. I want to zoom in. Zoom in. Okay. Okay. What is very interesting from the screen is that you can see how the analog voltage corresponds to the digital signal that is seen. Looking at the A1 channel versus D1 channel, you can see that there are slight breaks in the analog data that have been corrected in the digital channel. Now that we can see the digital signal data, we can look to use the logic analyzer to read the content of the data. Click on the analyzers on the right. Since we know the protocol is USART, let's look to configure an async serial analyzer for both channel 1 and 0. Let's configure channel 1's analyzer first. If we were true hardware reverse engineers, we would first have to figure out the rate at which data is being transmitted, as well as the specific configuration, such as parity bits and frames. However, to keep this simple, Forensic Elf has already discovered this for you. Alter your configuration to match the following. Okay. 4800. 81. No. Least. Okay. And then we're going to save. Okay. Once saved, we can see that the data is being analyzed. Click the little terminal icon and we can actually read the data being transmitted. Okay, where is the terminal? Okay, so yeah, we see that. Okay. We see the initialization sequence of the serial line and then three lines of data being sent. ACK reboot, command 195837 9600. This doesn't yet mean anything since we are only seeing one side of the data. In order to see the other message, we need to add another analyzer to channel 0. Click the plus icon next to analyzers and add another async serial, except we're going to do channel 0. So I think it was 4800. Yeah, 8, 1, non parity, least, non verted, and normal. Okay. Once added, click the trash icon in the bottom right to remove all terminal data. Once done, click on the three dots next to each analyzer and restart on both of them. Okay, so actually, okay. So where's the trash? Okay. Okay. Restart. Okay. So command, please send security string. Security string accepted. Please specify new baud rate. New baud rate of 9600 accepted. Okay. Okay. 9600. Okay. Now we are starting to piece together the information. It seems like the microprocessor is establishing a session with the ESP32 device to allow communication to the control server. We can now see the full discussion between the two devices. The protocol asks the ESP32 to reboot its connection to the control server. The ESP32 is happy to oblige, but requests a security code to be sent to allow a connection to the control server. Once the security code has been transmitted, the ESP32 allows the microprocessor to negotiate a new baud rate to be used for communication. Interestingly, once this new baud rate is accepted, we cannot read the rest of the output. However, since we intercepted the baud rate, we can simply edit our channel 0 analyzer to a new baud rate to read the rest of the communication that was sent. Okay. So I think this is channel 0. So I'm okay. I think this is 9600. Oh, yeah. I didn't want to restart. I wanted to edit. 9600. Save. Oh, okay. Okay. So we have it. Okay, we changed it. So the flag is try hack me. Hacking hardware is fun. Okay. So if we're looking for a challenge, we can check out the recent threats. Okay, we have finished this room. This was really interesting. I have always been interested in Internet of Things hacking, but really haven't had a chance to really delve deep into it. That's why I love Advent of Cyber minus Bandit Yeti, because we are always learning new things. Like I didn't know about USART, SPI, or IS or I2C. I really don't mess with the hardware side of the house. But yeah, this was interesting. So I hope to see you in the next day video. We are, well, now 5 days away from Christmas. And yeah, let's see what Bandit Yeti is going to do to try to disrupt Santa. Okay, have a good day. Bye.